second ago.
Oh, okay, so maybe he was going. He was calling me to know. Thank you.
I think he may have gone to, like, bathroom maybe. I think he was in the room. I'll go last.
They're lying.
You want to be added to the chain? Oh, okay. What's your email now? Oh, it's not done. Got it.
Okay, it's gonna be this one.
Does anyone else want to be added of sentence? Alright, anyone else want to be added? Yes. I just want to confirm everyone got it. We get the door. Yes, it does. According to Stephen Hackman. Yep. Contention 1 is counterfeiting. Online counterfeiting is skyrocketing. 70% of consumers use e-commerce by counterfeit. Tech 23. 7% by counterfeit. Online because we do research much about e-commerce and spend online watching copyright counterfeit. The brand is more counterfeit. So back to the primary one to knowledge around to IPO platforms. Team use either connect contemporary knowledge primary insulate platforms elaborate lack specific knowledge origin. This causes shift from platforms correctly and forces reactive people enforced by brands. 23. Kids also not paying market tables on the second all the contemporary knowledge and all the second and they become posting for it own but it's sort of activity no reactive to the knowledge or this brand and then make more list of the take place in the whack-a-mole. Tim is what e-commerce counterfeit Michael Electronics, 23. Teaching laptop and insulting body marketing or the operator by contemporary knowledge and such like no different property areas over and better take that down and have to the new news really different kind of Michael Electronics loss of the new manufacturing but not really do that down really the word was like a concept activity. Counterfeit electronics are grid and spaces including talents, 23. Code time for listeners to become kind of an initiative permanent number of those 85 by average of kind of US catastrophic kind of visual intent because total system and also event and push like an intent located on your back space and those who will get catastrophic. Scenario 1 is the grid cloud causing extinction. Here's 21. Electric does institution plays clouds out independence out from water like a space and it can use the might take the result having only lots 16 clouds drive to reduce capacity red estrus. Scenario 2 is satellites. Crashing CO2 electronics destroy satellites, especially CubeSats, creating cyber spheres and cascading debris. Here, time 4. Chemical electronic fuel system elements in terms of equal to genuine system problems like chemical electronics and electronics and what kind of space every company general space in order to reduce stress by reducing need to mitigate contamination even the version to chemical electronics up and so like this don't be better malware good over use on fire for the what is not given what is flexibility of the squares frequency is one of those who can be average number of the window of the let's open we come to primary and the result using to do one skills has been mortality even if we state very bad no problem working but that's based on what we're having to down from constant over here necessary required with unofficial sources technical satellite failure DRT escalation accidents and payment and the following word 21. Given this, we saw one of the new fabrics or the different reasons, combination of new fabrics, on the top of into the argument, one person ever had to do reason to not having to go search. See the limit of getting the distant on the cycle isolated, different overreaction, the limit of 1 more than the isolated. On the next minute, on the Soviet Union, on the country with the new press, as the DSL, China, and even nuclear power, similar to work case on the isolated, where it's basically all the real and any use uncertainty. LU keeps us uniquely solve 6 years and networks, but part pillars are progress, just about 24. No, so the web revolution may be named as basic regards all the across the table over time application and the practical customer will be less and real estate research of the budget to cut medical bonus as able to spend the market purposes. Also, I have to do all the medical on what communication source and basic communication work on the crucial security. The service is on camera research and improve capacity for homes to depend on high availability, high relevancy, standard to and also substitute to have the data for communication. 60 otherwise never will teach you that. So 21. As a part of our confidence, thinking on next step, making about that extra of the function and work with lots of great and our who actually pathogen team, the more about that extra to control the game quickly and make it run the result, take a little thing, but give them a result design, skill that's as able to do money making, that's you can those money making classes extras. You'll be from South very causing feature, way 24. This on 2 minutes as their first base and just in when we are working on the might be which is something to get out of us has a lot of money, but the matter of the not saying we're trying to get zero dollars, can get more puzzle than we have on the area, can't wait to leave with it. We go by the past plan, how to do it in stop in space. Steering cruise reactors, kind of reactor meltdowns, of course, 22. Kind of questions one with when kind of they reacted by atoms suffering meltdowns. That causes extinction and gross energy, roughly 23. You're supposed to look at me going hard and will be no become radiological mind and calorie and cool points of like the exercise reactor meltdown has had close being atmospheric with one minute is actually the brain multiples resistance to air and have make it down the time attack and myself through Mark's twisting to air to put into the carbon energy visual carbon. The planet pilots is constructed non-standard unlighting medias from Luxottica and Amazon 22. Cool, let's specific cloud that every investigation the cloud service research non-record investigation pretty much every comments on the red frame, I'm going to plug those and not versus the environment for every post. But proactively blocking broad claims, not just individual cases, key, any of normalizing time to increase financial incentive to allow us to continue to succeed. Something to drop time and talk about the right thing on the same benefit messages, like having the message they kind of any of the very slot, knowing the possible kind of already considering legal documents, so governments of the probably different rights, everything and then to the authority of the government, and then the kind of market of the laws to reach over the name, specific violations, that's the plan. The United States federal government should determine that constructive knowledge of trade record communication, domestic contributory term liability, and a duty to investigate for online intermediaries, contention to doctrine. Scenario 1 is towards regarding constructive knowledge for a specific knowledge for a vortex is for applies the basis established case by Act 12. In the only part of the required action on the independent also the trademark concepts or constructive knowledge to the required action on in the only part of our court to consider constructive knowledge liability directly to base establish for all individual taking the nation line with action on the required service in harmony with the document level because of the specific identification for taking the certified case on one constructive knowledge generally important. We find it towards authorized regulation 115. Towards the constitutional form developed legal implications of the decision of who litigate value properly new not to any legislative program or he was saying that litigate when providing subject to all this and market the same first was back to use all the access disclosure minor legal one website is teach some law regulation salt extinction code 21. Breaking up new rules and decision capacity better 20% of the time better than 3 months modern records all the better and fish better not only the better the first stretch was not at all specifically the first responsible drug use for top 16. Check capacity on regular AWS and one action get like any for lot of criminal to we can run in handle every receive regular and all and all strong general and more than generally structured living creating control and Virginia academy and present protocol is also being regularly about dangerous activities. The US preemptively start trying to healthcare growth by August 130. Just for regular and healthcare trying to get time to join putting my mind down the field once a month to get healthcare integrating regress by the meal. That's your good need to do for trying to select first to 25. Time comes in the second order weeks where we need to use attention and how much I'm health and getting tiny network with people as less people going and do good change. Harmonizing trademarks and source providers of the field, right? And the general attention is certainly integrated towards that form of dominant very well attractive alternative naturally selling the digital one of the accelerator and not your suppliers for to get towards the different busy or no under study people in regards to the disease travel and center operated and rules this page of the speech earlier is how much relative later this one can do the increase non dependent on the center and the federal level can contribute to trademark liability is global one and harmonize and tech category 110. Some of the workers become really harmless to get rid of international forces to create exists block clues and governments use the debate on national US represent global comment and single general liability that the person of the comment on global is to everything out as possible. Only that person maximize the cheapest cost avoiding principle for a single level. Because when harmful which is government going to market the best of the plan and they could over that they ran this we'll see if it's relevant place for an idea and appropriate books on British ability random marketplace for the one place role. Scenario 2 is unfair competition. Tip keepers ear rejected applying to all standards for unfair competition. That'll be 15. Regional anticipation from unfair competition applies to the rejected maybe I don't know regulations presented to be regional anticipation looking on general approach that local records based on reliability like $100. Reapplying these constructed knowledge first and be typically strict and first overly lenient standard. Otherwise international form shopping gets splinters the internet. So 9. A common fact that fair comments reliable on the paper has been reviewed reasonably just video so not only understanding the sentence and reasonably just pick up on the US and people use technically both the dependent on the selling a friend so company and we go to such a benefit for what they get very little to be made to the so we go site and ensure we trade to be very maybe and no we try to the right compliment to good back now side of the between to this every solution and then levels very expensive all these and depending on the comments and those solutions and this for the internet fragmentation proves cooperation on every existential risk merit point. In a fragmentation will go up and it's going to be fragmented quality and drive your impossible to understand. Unfair competition halts anti-competitive conduct. Then Bangladesh 13. Courts understood competition was desirable not be business law, where trademarks and practice allowed to adverse to the effect of consumer by banning anti-competitive practice. Unfair competition is tangible. Competition was desirable and very strong and important for individual evils from understanding business. Unfair competition is due to safety and zeal post dealing ethically behavior and transactional justice. Unfair corporatism causes extinction. Yampolsky 18. Nothing current law permits a limited corporation today serving humanity for political and current easy because citizens do not recognize excellent commercial accumulates such wealthy unfair disrespect undermine collusion and monopoly multiple entities over multiple resources. Reinstate unfair competition underlying home revitalize the field. Farley 20. Common law protecting against support of unfair competition, trademark competition, species varying land and analyze actual unfair competition law cited in the scope of unfair competition legislation is to reveal how certain provisions of code expanded unfair competition practice be overlooked. The original 43 8 fill what has been happened as wrote as unfair competition in like as a result unfair competition remains undefined undefined unfair competition that was lost. Yeah, like 5 seconds, I'm leaving us.
Okay, so the plan to be clear shifts liability from e-commerce to e-commerce platforms for counterfeit goods being on their sites.
The plan establishes a constructive knowledge standard for determining when contributory trademark liability attaches to online marketplaces.
Okay, what does that stand? The standard?
It's a constructive knowledge, so it's a standard of do they have a reason to know? Should they know?
How do the courts determine if they have a reason to know or not?
Yeah, basically, if they constructive knowledge differs from specific knowledge in that the marketplaces have to respond to generalized notice of counterfeits on the site rather than specific listings. This one isn't infringing, this one isn't infringing.
So in the specific case of Tiffany versus eBay, for example, Tiffany reported to eBay that counterfeit Tiffany products were on their site. eBay said we do not know the specific instances, so therefore we will not enforce it. Constructive knowledge means eBay had responsibility.
Who does the plan?
Yeah,
what is normal stuff?
normal means with a lot of our evidence indicates that allegedly it could be closed.
Okay, what if, so the first scenario, like the first two scenarios, the first advantage, what if chips are already in the military in a program of failure? Like,
We don't have a military.
no, okay, so your evidence about like microchips being integrated into the grid, microchips being integrated into satellites, if those are already in the satellites, how does the app solve for those?
Okay, two things. They're being integrated now, however, we think reducing the number of counterfeit chips in
Your
satellites.
evidence says they've already
Yeah,
been.
also,
Your evidence even goes so far to say that they have long life cycles. How is the app?
No, these parts have long life cycles, which is why counterfeit chips are needed. But the mirror evidence indicates that consumer off-the-shelf sites are growing right now, specifically for CubeSats, which is an emerging industry. That evidence is very recent and indicates that it right now is key. And the way to stop future debris is by preventing them right now.
The third scenario, or I guess like the last scenario on this first advantage, how does the app prevent nuclear plants from going back?
It would reduce the counterfeit parts.
yeah,
How
the
does
board
that
indicates
benefit-
that.
how does-
Yeah, so the most important part of a nuclear plant is its cooling system. This is operated through chips, electric systems, and other, computers that manage how the cooling rods are inserted. If the chips fail in those systems, then the plants can be actively cooled, and a Rossi evidence indicates that causes explosions equivalent to a hydrogen bomb that irradiates the planet.
Second
And
advantage,
there's
how
a
do
new era now.
trademark torts affect torts in other areas like, for example, drone usage?
Yeah, so the grand evidence indicates that the reason that torts are dying in status quo is the separation between tort law and trademark law. Currently, they are regarded under distinct statutes, which means that instead of going to tort law, people go to trademark law generally.
Specifically, our Ivan's card is very specific to the plan. It says eroding constructive knowledge in the online context, quote, directly eats away at an established principle of tort law, and quote, cuts against an accumulated established body of case law. Contributory trademark liability grew out of tort doctrine. That's why it has an intended connection in trademarks with torts, and that's how the plan
It's also
acts.
specifically the aiding and abetting principle, which could be used to regulate both firms and other
Yeah, but counterfeit is not that specific doctrine. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How many? Shoot, 1 second. Okay. 10 off, 1, 2. Okay.
First off, person to contribute reliability, snowball score per person, have a very low, and simple suppose, have a most way have a corpus application concerning corporate knowledge, it would be necessary to become word, and then if a constitutes second law, provide little firm course model applying knowledge with DFDM, but visual starting on secondary liability, responsibility, extensive share markets, liability, line, multiple jurisdictions, for corporate epistemology, could be applied, application for adoption development, extension of, both scheme 21, as a legal person, you would be activated there, corpus, we lead the deteriorated conditions, employment, reduction of rights, extension of adoption, price, and MA, catalyst, credit, equal, resident, service leaders, and military aspect of humans, that torture, genocide, equal war, next substance, protection, intellectual property, protecting all forces, excludes substance, the activity, the determination by being music, country, rights, means under law, versus secure, arrest, and all forms of IP, in these all activities around area, whereas the state, the word should be throughout, violation, that after some sugar protection, throughout the entire area of Tremors, when they go on the after targeting municipal course of each of the topic areas, exponentially more implies the number of tough laws, and it's called to make it possible, because the absence of the South Code, next division, the United States should have been e-commerce ban, judge, create full fund, the ability of public cooperative, solely proud energy, the base of domestic worker, with that customer obligation, the international law for close contributor, the chairman liability, safety, safely shut down, holding for parklands of the United States, section, all countries above a certain quarter prepared to prosecute economic for goods, removing non-satellite objects from faith and space and preventing the development of economic goods for swear, using non-US manufacturing parts and grid space and nuclear power systems, including at least satellite sinkers, funding for space for your remote and development of naval satellites and 60 technology to find out the source in the area of patents by expanding subject matter to German and patents, currently eligible, increase antitrust prosecution, including at least bringing big technology companies responsible for unchecked corporatism prevents escalation, I-17 investigation, needed to recycle level 2 should invest in global defensive space, directly energy, could nuclear sector security, and capable of technical dead, could nuclear race of hardness, level, water, check any projectile system where the ICBM sent, because that's what's at least I said, more deck, which is else running without seeking the crystallized and generalizing water that is necessary to respond to essential threats. Crypto C, where say all obligations to question whether the natural obligations can constantly consent and general acceptance may be insufficient already in the water format, having interpretation and reinterpret text and interpret action previously forbidden encourages utilizing versus utilizing legal order and trust the state that basis are aggressive to say yellow coalition, but the days of international structures complicated, multiplied treaty sets with CIO, the dynamic global problems, combating training, financing terrorist wars, minimizing climate, reducing use of the NDCA or message through global solutions. Section of the United States federal government should adopt and abide by policy. The repeals tariffs implemented within the last 100 days to force raising tariffs have absent congressional approval and force raising executive in the grant of the operations of the Federal Reserve will concede the counterfeit sales are expected to skyrocket in the plans also full scope by covering global demands as massive products on its economy. Exceed 23 generally counterfeit products 75% seized by customs for equivalent in any other country and consequences of growth can result of garbage Chinese industry market was essentially US billion USD counterfeit 21% of all trade 80% of all counterfeits no origin from China despite IP 320 in the next 3 years. This seeing market segments for issues of fake goods in China actively purchase middle class shopping to high degree shocks in China's economy class CCTV legitimacy forcing to determine diversion escalation Taiwan original conflicts. Attention forward with keeping up the CCTV's legitimacy extolling U.S. power the implement of nationalist policies to protect against only economic territory three someone to restore pursuing confrontational wolf warrior diplomacy continued and nationalist rhetoric highlighting the confrontation pushed back against never just like experts highlight being exerts great influence nationalist sentiments driving more aggressive air responses someone to war goes bigger and potential war invasion Taiwan repercussions for nature with China's people sources by NFU wise analysis doubly essential good battle over Taiwan fight over China's whole political future central not nuclear goods despite US resistance others and US allies greatest strength in Indo-Pacific is partners relentless efforts to discourse to manage reporting the on never obviously anti-section nuclear good against severe next expected plan checks just specify the federal version carries out the plan they didn't that's the aging conference the table was situated on politics CAs reject the act next illegal council conference the United States executive should request that a legal opinion of our beginning contributory like territorial liability and a duty to investigate for online intermediaries the office of the legal counsel should publicly advise the executive to begin a contributory the territorial liability and duty to investigate for online intermediaries that can be since also accountable lowering regarding classes credibility and transparency only 20 LSU authority to advise affairs and agencies on proposed action process upon candidate principles and advice attorneys subscribe to this obligation to provide investigate the law and attributions of temporary or troubling LLC's issuing and very divisible put on a line of storing status and goals and independent professional advice required recommitment and norms of investment rules LLC committed presumption of publishing opinions and publication enhances transparency to ensure accountability opening LLC to up to scrutiny prevent politicization the publishing when admin relies on LLC that just by nature policies will help Congress and public understanding legal basis for exact actions and what LLC accountable to work with succeeding lowering everyone negotiating litigation involved national networks and effectiveness and transparency norms should be expected to give advice and public and supporting action divorce, interpretation, shaped by laws, interpreted, action officer, negotiator, architect, administration, opportunity to speak from policy, level of comfort, level of administrative, shouldn't be normalized, exception table rule should be abused public, and published, we should not memorialize, person else want to show this was not placed for having talk rationalization, unless you're facilitated by the policy according to conflicts for negotiations, the crisis, particularly legal opinion, facilitated best policy option, next security fair, production of IP is one of problematic security, logic coverage is C, production of IP become purely covered in security or knowledge and known and controlled by it, and that's secret of C, production of cost of IP, but not security, just with abstract notion of IP, there's a decision that will have us from to press, to security that goes the distinction between production of economic interest and nature say IP exists to great extent in neighborhood, but in limited monopolies that means to expression tension, no security depends upon public production, small problematic, cost, control, discourse surrounding the production of IP is important unless it's neological security, basic, kind of securitization of IP, mobilized, and three budget securitized. Securitized knowledge production that progress is American exceptionalism, recitation was at the team, whatever conditionalism, movement, national exceptionalism, radio such a gorgeous, but on rationalized dispossession of indigenous nations, running no explanation of why free freedom is ignoring ecologically, economically unsustainable, considering several hundred times opposing markets, stealing millions of publishing loans, overweight blood produced government that may be able to equivalent to winter, American way blood gangs, secure blood, but also raise is the most dangerous force that exists on planet Earth. We consume half the world's resources, national and security across a huge ability to eliminate, receive, just these facts required, radical pain and management, but I can reject security, they're making trauma to 21, security needs to be redone, security against what the world means question the objective nature of securitization, the legitimate system, exceptional measures, his representations mediated directing measures for people that basically teach security is always for someone enforced on purpose. There are no objective threats, it's not the damage to reality, but it's on process of construction, security those forces need to be re-articulated, countering image. One, countering accessory regulated assurance, jointly citizens and federal the operation not run does not make it complete copyright piracy, patent infringement, no not doing anything about sovereign China, not going to prevent patent infringement, not going to prevent. This was so loud that they came back in Moscow, she would eBay, the case was in 2010, if they were corrected by the internal links, there should be no so many counterfeit parcels that's linked on software, 3, 0 chance of each of the nippers and all electricity, 4 pieces about global courier, they can't solve that, 5 because we're going crazy, should 4, you would extremely large 6,400, unless there's either to effect on whole grain at once, but I separate the security incredible that come from the inside because access to control is robust. It is not feasible to take down the whole grain of physical infrastructure, artisan stuff, cascading photos, has a production chance of very small, 6 no link cameras, are the only cause of access into space, access from space 3 already in space that triggers the internal link, 7 every time impact actually constraints, and a response, and increased group, Zeri Binsky, 18 directly forward, but also as an attack on SS, it's little range of these zones, we're working against Pakistan, we don't know the war, countries recently against American and no SS news, has been a working response to retaliate news, should the bosses and result of broader, no person offset limiting escalation, but 8 new and 60 impact motion for about the enforced, 60 big operating, 60 myth, not trigger, however, refreshment, matrix, NBA, 60 hours, 60 liability, admission, or that's not factory, or the never, European players, or something globally, say, 9 and 1 to see as uses ASLs, we want without 60, no, 10, no, engineer classes, current mitigation never resolved, 11, Trump kills and environmental protection, he's rolling out back every single thing, 12, no, 12, no toxic waste, unconvincing forward, corruption, working an accident, disciplinary abuse on the supporter, parties, and state, people on, no reactions, natural occasion, receipt, no chain reaction, no possibility of solution, including the small plus surrounded by carbon disintegrations, unlikely in an accident, with product accident, source of image. 111 torso expanding now, the source are wrong, here, Grammy, Tor, Law, more dated, the center of examples of growth, trade, liability, no, yeah, to appear intentional plan, infliction, distress, and negligently included interest in difference of products, the general expansion, concern, and theories, debated a century ago, has been recovered, never just from about a 6 of his wife, against the discovered company, wife against a tower, alcohol, husband, to the planet, the social chemicals, the source of legal means to redress unfair trade, the law, sure, the numbers, torches, and grievances, including choice to do, contracting, and embarrassment, behavior, regardless, they see bars, and longer trust, and troubling things, and these kinds of, they're just by the same field, chemicals, such as about rules, such as the common law, agency consumer responsibility 3 that whenever collapse grid and collapse group is decentralized. Yeah.
Just want to comment on reading any of the last 3 off.
Right.
Reasons to reject the team are just A-spec and C-subsets?
Yes.
Okay. The advantage counterclaim, what's the benefit? The
Internal and China DA.
And the president is.
Oh yeah, let's actually look at the person in this set. So, does contributory liability as a doctrine exist in the status quo?
We think not. The whole point is that there are exceptions to it and it's not enforced now.
What exceptions
The act applies it so that there is a requirement for corporations to have some
sure.
So the only way to know that the corporation has knowledge about infringement is giving them full person.
Wait.
That's exactly what the birth part says.
So that's about ISPs, internet service providers. Where does that talk about online intermediaries?
ISPs are the internet providers.
Internet service
engaged in e-commerce. Your evidence is
No,
also about
our evidence is about e-commerce sites such as eBay.
ISPs are engaged in that.
ISPs.
Either
Are
way,
you willing
it's
to
broadly
stake this to
system.
settle? Like, are you willing to stake this to settle? Like, if you win that,
But we don't even have to win that. First of all,
Okay, so
we don't have to win ISPs. It's about personhood for corporations.
Okay, yeah. So does the knowledge standard for corporations exist in the status quo?
We think yes, but the point is that there are exemptions under it. Like,
Okay,
the
what are the
part
exemptions?
talks about how there is one, for example, the copyright NDCA, but because there is a specific contributory liability requirement for knowledge, they are exempt from that.
It says there are, quote, applying knowledge-based statutory provisions of the DMCA. Are you saying there's no knowledge-based provisions?
We think that there is no contributory liability like the one the app.
There is no contributory liability for the DMCA.
The whole point is that there are exemptions to it. That's the argument, that they don't have to have full specific knowledge.
Okay,
That's like the
but
one
they don't have to have specific knowledge, is what you just said. Okay,
that's
so
the one is the inherency.
that's the one is the inheritance.
That they don't have to have,
They have to have
they
specific
aren't held
knowledge.
to contributory liability if they don't know fully
Okay,
about the
does
information.
this have mentioned the standard of constructive knowledge anyway?
It's about corporate, well, it's about corporate knowledge, we said that knowledge in order to be held
So
liable.
what specifically is different about the constructive knowledge standard versus the specific knowledge standard in the link to this dissent?
The argument is about contributory liability, which is where the 180 expansion.
Contributory, okay, I'm gonna
Like,
say
I don't know
something.
these buzzwords if I'm
Okay,
being honest.
contributory liability means people in the status quo, means people are liable if they have specific knowledge
Sure.
of the infringement. The plan changes that to they are liable if they have constructive knowledge of the infringement. Where is that distinction?
There are exemptions to contributory liability now. The act removes almost all of those by lowering the threshold for having knowledge.
So, you're saying the internal link is the exemption, right? Okay, what if the app does not apply to internet service providers, which is what the link is?
It doesn't, then you don't solve anything because you don't apply.
Okay, are eBay,
Also, it's completely irrelevant.
internet service
It's
providers?
irrelevant about service providers.
Okay, so would liability for service providers trigger the link?
Sure.
Liability for internet service providers will trigger the link.
Oh, yes, but those don't exist now.
But if you win that they do exist now, then that's your dissent?
I mean, if you win that there is contributory liability already held and that they have personhood, then yes.
Okay, and you win those contributory liability, I didn't know that was there. Okay.
I know.
Oh, my word not. Tracy is don't know about it. And I just finished an entire mountain before now, so I'm not gonna, but it's already 6 now.
Maggie, I can't remember if you're Maggie. I can't remember if you're a basketball or a baseball fan.
I mean, a little column A, little column B, but mostly baseball.
Baseball. You're a Braves fan?
No,
Brewers? Brewers, okay.
Braves 2 times.
Yeah.
No,
Yankees fan.
no, it's fine. I mean,
weird, given where you're from, but,
My whole family should do this.
Oh.
No
Go
judgment.
Dodgers.
I think I know that. Which one? Wait. Advantage 1, hundreds. Advantage 2, doctrine. A-spec. Subsets. Advantage counterplan. Legal counsel counterplan. Security K. The person who decide. The China conflicts decide. Good.
1 second. Yeah.
John using all those other teaching kind of chip yourself to listen to radiation plans and diagnosis watching distinct toxic growth signals to radioactivity. With the gut, what if you want to stack the wrong? When we raise staff to certain scenario, what if you take up to the 70% of e-commerce through e-commerce and post dates, but we have done a structuration liability. This staff not about defense. Sure, the tech lobbies will throw evidence out. Once you choose about 2010, it doesn't matter. In fact, we need to fight the this is the breakers right now. The green index is conceded. We don't need to go for a space. Space is conceded. We don't need to go for a 60 defense. It's wrong. QTAS streamline 16 hours past wireless or aspect coding, global response, otherwise external disasters, and nuclear accidents or never absent communication that's true. There are evidence to not increase in an increase in speed, faster than due to the war that are just measuring evidence increase. They drop at its total impact. So the only mitigation the internal link, they say AX off, no. Communications can't connect at all. Through QTAS, just as they say solve bioterror, they didn't mean the card here, but it is existential. Killers QTAS means, remember now, they say Trump keeping the environment doesn't matter as well. New bioterror access and communication solved. They say the doctrine means even the market which really needs to one. Doctrine is that. The doctrine counterplan. They basically drop the quotes of impact because they get a monopoly, seize power, and to unfair business practices, lock community business facilities, not the internal link, unfair competition, and unfair competition means revitalize the entire field. But contributing to human non-section common law doctrine to blame if you right to be sure that you just be the doctrine finds solutions on that code. They say the torture is deep now wrong. We have uniqueness now. Short 24, degree presentation, short letter, secret, void under the life of anything, conflict, short taking, two summons calling the national period, and including the one foundation, balance, fixation, come, the corners of the state, every time the line is on the entire radiation, and they drop the drones and like Trump drone has kind of like all these drones. The economy is no, that's 20% less than the drones try to die. They say the apps on virtual disk, we mentioned that it's good. The internet defense is wrong. It's way too, they did not actually beat a card, the great defense is not applied, but the internet is existential, internal global cooperation, the backbone of global infrastructure, it's Maryland Hayes, you cannot cooperate in exit, they drop the internal link. Inspect. We meet US agents or agents. First specification, unpredictable arbitrary. It means bad agent comes in spec means that these set of reasons, no offense, other specs all. True accuracy should and NPR does not justify competition if we want to be in, it's not a voter. Subtext. We meet function and contributory liabilities in all framework standards. Counterfeit, it means that between one instance of permanent and following specific closed and removed. And prefer one, grammar only in definitions of relevant. We grammatically meet every other interpretation of the resolution here. Two, is not found. 10 on being we get 3 acts. 3, position for federal court. Within one, functional limits like cap, clause, 3, generous, vanity. And then all check, default reason, relate checks, some kind of advantage template. Do the happening combination of lengths. 2. Mix in as benefit. 3. Multiple counterplays are voted for leverage the original place to solve. It works no solve yet. If the voting should know what things the counterplays is a good idea. Banning e-commerce can't solve the app banning drones. Fails. Only regularly up and down by the current self. Umbrella. And team knows the different from the world as a lot of different award use. And the revenue away from the source like new position possibility and harmless. Different comments by the 20 challenge. The loss of you can solve this. No one can analyze the latest like fails. And any physical barriers. Ruin it. Holding 20 euros. Limited in front of the users. Take no hard time. This would like the line side. Whatever science all smoke. And all the scatter. 2 minutes of serious problem. Penalty. Data. The Bible. Plus survival. Talking about results. 2 million. 2 miles. Attacking these non-affected self-defense. So destroy target. In a split second. 1 split second. They say the CIA out like but. Burn to the helmet over other issues. Counterplan could be texting function. Key to germanium. States may cause negative text inserted by data. That means you reject counterplays that are unproven plans and inherently a bad idea. But one action not create ILOP. Barely said, not how much from not create ICIL to me. Why is the fact not how long the focus has motivation means this can probably not be true, but so they require any time not obligation not like all costs you think all the interviews are consider now. Study of nuclear weapons and solve in the conflict extinction. 1919, comes with the distinction not every same thing about the vessels I see that. This is large and the warning reason that we run away with epidemic. This is like a counter voter, does not say doesn't see from public documents every government. No results, the next reason no showing the best offices. They can take everything. This was all taken from theory.
the sanction fails and then the model, the non-used space doesn't matter, they don't get the cost, they don't have the cost because there's no financial incentive to create that scandal. The increased money doesn't matter, debris removal doesn't scandal, that's rate drop, increased source doesn't matter, it's hard to fail, it's a voting issue, but cannot solve the inconsistency now, increasing interest and solve this under competition key. A legal counsel can't solve, courts are key, courts do not listen to the executive best actors, and cannot solve global monitoring because US courts are key as first these are the executive counsel, like two balls, should not matter, do the counsel, do the plan, no one plays the meeting, do the campaign, show preference, do the body issue, do the possible defense, do the campaign over other issues, classify all standards there, 10% section, no internal one instance, one's the lower, but advice is bad, can change the executive then, no impact, can turn over, action, whether the registered ideas, the public, and the noise, working turn around, associated with alternative, or the executive action, the delivery, capacity, choice of being overcome, W, whether we or writing, and the counsel, specific long targets, whatever intellectual responsibility, I wish you should be lenient on justice, because no one thinks kind of like, I'm just going to object, judge, for being a 2 hours, untimely get blocked, and no legal counsel, because it's been done by years of counsel in the first place, security case, framework, upgrading, consequences of so many actions, names, must have uniqueness, and also material solve, any other interpreters app, whose often the difference of new strengths class, do both, I open up the links, or some other kind of do each, analyze security, and here, but both app, for desirable theater plan, distinction ways, terminal, irreversible design agents, do the app, and non-research system parts of all, which solve, no choice case, so impact and process and deal, do not allow, next generalization, one is specific, they should be specific on what all fake, analysis, once the total state security is embedded, just one of the foundation system there, 1113, you can see the high density, because of being security, because the genetic piece of uninvited electron total commission, the policy data relationship, security, and monarchy outsource, control of benefits of the zero, decision law, chemistry, operations, design, common advice, and the need, the purpose of what you should be securitized, but this has the force government and force zero law, so we can several reps, no need to put one puzzle justification, include the plan, no balance, no impact securitization, given God, contains security, the kind of was of the period, kind of control, class, changes, research, practical summary, the answers, no video from minutes, and public, and never all the 5 years, more opportunity, the fact is, like, given the sense, moving, which cannot count, represent the can won't put up the college, and chemistry, and industrial media critique, when they make audience, all everything, teaching, student, not policy, weight, not matter, the priority, no, you people, and links, no link, a proposal, continuing, in fact, so what they're at the door fix, especially given the drop, the intent over truth, securitization, justified, one idea, should be one of the God, the guy gets turned very good, securitization, business, hard series, not public, certified, country, for them, securitization, go frame, and get stumped, securities, another name for confidence, and analysis of both sides, line for education, all cannot stop to shape subjectivity, all sides, all causes, to see that the one single balance influence, make all floating things in utopian, private actor, and international field are all voting issues, racial deficits, and avoid scrutiny. They cannot solve the after score like trademarks are crucial. They're linked evidence about trademarks, and not about trademarks, and about IP, that's what I see. There's a counterfeit, not stealing IP, there's no link, insert yellow, first one. No link, contributory liability exists now, but there's no knowledge. It's just about specific knowledge, no distinction, contributory knowledge, and it's not by breaking the water context. There's got no terminal links. You could epistemology, not apply that to the plan, nor the set code, and we distinguish. McConnell, that something even is bringing out I think the fact about it, pretty much kind of an end process, taste of the common law, concept 95. Future common law, use of federal law, no, so common law, the general federal common law, applies all cases, specific laws, sometimes cases, and plan solve. This is our corpus impact, draw, and compensation, the best way to solve. It has a no link, contributory liability already exists, and it's not knowledge for IP under GMTA. That's not the plan, that's a copyright initiative, not trademarks. This is we could be blind, not will. Insert green. Government of sentient agents and their physics. Will insert the evidence of agents is horrible and no internal link because they did not get to AI legal person. I know you're stealing college backgrounds. Impact is not unique. Hoping no company recommends legal person and should be going to support whatever exists. Like natural person legal makes everyone decision right to support any right. But there's no impact. We don't make legal especially because of not last of was express idea for legal entity, 7 from shareholders, 7 is oil makes have a market policy, user will go for channel change. Only the individual who have no money, something or companies of person compensation, and it's impossible. But it's 20 out, then you're being for the person of AI, you're being on video, personal of AI, when they possibly change the given political nature, and no impact. No bad area, China can implement on it, but you're not going to change. Market there, China counterfeits, non-unique, China's down, China's have to turn out, China comes starting, 100 times changing, because China is so crazy, the rest of the manufacturing goes, you know, to buy one to the day, because of the getting conservation news, and to me, not more than $9. Mark that there, and or overwhelmed, meaning letters, but they tell us to keep permanent any combination of the counterfeit, either overwhelmed or the link, is not that big of no link happens of China from some counterfeits, other countries making profit, the app, solve the impact, solve the US China war, drop the nose, and counterfeits, make an $18-20 economy, floating 15 is drop the bucket. Counterfeit about what they do going to design in China, and the DXC is wrong, since import counterfeiting outweighs, so insert green here, and one thing can, is either low now and structural, insert that there, social and the design would develop, containing market share of offering, input, coffee, broad, and contain, so the food production, your venture, area, bathroom, instead of venture, disconnect, for a lot of it, consumer side, cannot.
I said the extra cards in the good. Amazing.
Where do you think on the China GDP mistake gets anywhere near a collapse? It says that like
China's economy is sputtering. The latest indicators of China's economic health, the confluence of
Where
falling
you-
bond
this
yields,
paints a
declining
picture,
GDP.
this paints a picture of like a
like a less than 0.5% decrease in a 5% growth projection, where do you think it says it's going to collapse and going to
In
literal
that
recession?
uniqueness evidence, because it says that it calls the credibility of the government reported data into question. The aggressive fiscal measures indicate a more severe economic downturn and is more dire than officially acknowledged. China's economy is down now, and all the data that you use is official reports that try to paint a more rosy picture than what's actually
You
happening.
didn't read the facade part, right? You didn't read the
Facade,
facade. Okay, you said that you don't solve counterfeits in China? Was that the no link argument? You don't solve counterfeits in China?
Well, the no link argument is that the app doesn't immediately stop China from selling like to everyone, like any other country other than the US. The modeling would go to China eventually.
Wait. You made the claim that you solve all counterfeits that come from any source and go to the US. How do you not solve those counterfeits?
Keywords into the US.
Wait, that sounds like you just. That
Well,
sounds
I mean, okay.
Alright.
The Bernstein evidence is specific to
Okay.
European courts, but then it would model
The
to
K-
other courts later.
We're gonna so we can move on. The K, why is state security framing in this round the only way to present your threats and solve them?
State security?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
because,
why is it through your rhetoric the only way to solve them?
well, I guess the Luckham evidence indicates that security is highly necessary for preservation and like, stopping these threats. Without state security,
It's
there's
just
no
like
impetus for
persistent
change.
positive peace and like we could do things
Yeah.
for state security. What does it say is the only
No.
route
It's a
to solve
defense
and
of
talk
why
about
this present
possible like extinction risks?
It's a defense of why our presentation is not bad and any other analysis fails because it does not account for other structural factors on the international relations stage.
What is-
Luckham says that security analysis through the state is a good
What
thing
does
to
the term do each look like?
Under each, yeah, analyze the epistemologies of security in here, i.e. the Copeland room, but endorse the ask for a desirable fiat action, especially given that case
How do you
was dropped.
advocate for the ask
and
while
there's
also
100%
how do you advocate for the app while also interrogating your epistemologies on the same topic?
The app is a good idea, materially, go after that.
So it's
And
just
they
like
talk
you're
about
separating the
security and
representations that were in the app.
Well, the negative is also separate their own representations, because they've also
Well, it doesn't
securitized
require
one
separate representation.
Yeah.
It's voting for the app on a material level and endorse the K on the epistemology.
Yeah, it says we should probably prevent extinction, because that's probably the thing, but we should also look at the like how we got there in here.
Okay. Reasons
But
for
they also
rejecting-
endorse
wait,
it.
reasons for rejecting.
Conditionality is a voting issue, big alts, international fiat, epistemic fiat, mindset fiat, private actor fiat. Sometimes without solvency advocates, those previous fiats, because it wishes away deficits or scrutiny. Sometimes without solvency advocates are voted for intellectual irresponsibility. No one thinks the counterfeit maintenance is a good idea. Performative contradictions are a voting issue. Object fiat is a voting issue. Performative contradictions we also securitize. Object fiat uses
Social unrest turn on like
What's the
China
right
case, how does this act, like, what's the argument here? It just says that
Yeah,
like,
I-
manufacturers have a market share, what's the one?
started at 6:30.
6:36. Well, that will be 8:50. Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe what were we on parking? Was it 8:50? You guys
We made 50. What did they stop at?
6:36.
6:52.
No, 6:36.
It's more like 80%.
You send it.
I'm attached. So I'm really, it's a complete copy, I think this is the right one.
Should be alright.
Can I use?
It's too small for. Oh,
Okay. The order is three subsets. OLC for legal counsel. Tax advantage,
doctrine, okay.
yeah, document, and capital.
I'm gonna need to do that again.
Okay,
And louder.
T subsets,
Yeah.
legal counsel counterclaim.
Yep.
The doctrine advantage, and then the counterfeiting advantage.
Thank you.
Okay. So not the doors for this. Okay, everybody good.
Fine, let's see.
Everyone received it? What did you say? Oh, okay.
I haven't seen.
Hannah good too. Alright.
Okay.
Alright. We did is wrong with the app only covers trademarks that would be on the e-commerce platforms in the first place, which means it doesn't cover all trademark, because some trademarks are on brick and mortar stores as well. They dropped the protection definition, which would end the T debate, because T is a jurisdictional issue, which means that the negative should not have the burden of rejoinder if the plain text is not topical, which means that I don't have to answer the rest of our arguments. Protection requires all forms, that's the House 88. The end definition is irrelevant because it within includes the possibility of throughout, but also they've dropped the definition of a word in the resolution, which means that it's irrelevant. Go to the other way. Transparency outweighs, so it's dropped. Capacity ensures lawyers are excluded from national security questions. Guaranteeing nuclear crisis transparency ensures better military policy making. Limiting nuclear leaders to extinction, that's code. The counterplan to AC1 is no solvency, but the counterplan definitely solves a request in LLC memo. Never the plans mandated, it's announced publicly to ensure maximum transparency, which the executive will comply with that's only O and 2 sufficiency. That's supposed to be extinction, otherwise the dwarf. By the drop that benefit, courts will listen to the memo. They can see that Trump says yes. He has massive influence over the courts. Memos or shoot this declaration to law determine how to limit LLC's reputation as control of the LLC. They will say they can make aggressive picks up on the side. They always characterize the commission as well. They said, of course, I strongly right in the LLC, something like that. Not saying this is my position in question, and definitely LLC, of course, articulates as in the law. The next argument is to do both. It fails. First accountability, Hoffman. 23 strategic decisions and choose less visible means that you know what? Wants to make a this question about transparency, yes, and different. And accountability of the actors unaware of the instruments that generate radically different. How does this represent a performer which I'm choosing what? National rights and greater leverage. Second, post hoc rationalization of McCartan. So 19 that yellow see that decision for the new base progresses to backwards are new that didn't have build that post that hog rationalization and control. Nevertheless, is also more than the opinion cannot new that be running in the best formula that the opinion becomes nevertheless have comes out for regular OC was addition. Originally authoritative they will see I captured the office and call it. That's actually prohibited lawyers out by the way. New rational whatever. New rational is it once they no longer providing commercial opinions except nor yes lawyers out that no taking extra expertise. And that's bad for law. Third is conflicts rate. New set of this equal for credit or for so OC was be able to stable the decision or choice of precise. None of the rest of our purpose that control that no one works as a single one. They try to see our opinions requested only. The just right progress and money that they you must get love as a credit nexus to the counterplan. The service has better for background and clash. The counterplan is an advisory request and equality. It's based on mandates but downstream limitation to the memo value combination through mandates permitting. The Mexico strong because any counterplan could result in a plan is no different from US model with international counterplan or federal fiat with states or LSC opinions to non-enforce law. So that's when the LSC that none of the work is in policy for any while there's no pension provided by 17 and something that present the right.
no obligation and consequences these are pre-decisional, deliberative advice that addresses questions, topical comments for close out protection occurs by law, making that fact that a church takes to service and bodies enforcement, 23 that available and idea permission to take us, whatever the mechanism of the reduction of the fatal party rights where the 100%, the regulated infringement of permitted permission, judicial supervision, so there's an intellectual property as I can be, that's what's law, that 22 government and NDCA enforce law, IP rights are protected by law, 22, intellectual property rights have been legal rights that are protected according to national laws, LOC members, I enforce law, 21, LOC, national source law is not one per se, they cannot have enforce law in the way that statutes can, the preferred effort is enforce the laws, keep all ground enforcement cases filed in court. This has like econ and PTO shut off independently. Explains on this permitting this counterpoint based on any advisory action topical like guidance. Agency members who take the next counterpoint is due to the counterpoint then yeah versus intrinsic last delay. Textually through the word then in sequencing, which is temporal element of sequencing. Should this media summers 94 the answer is not from the agreement of the legal or question was actually important. This are the laws that need to be effective exposed to the future. Second place bad ways to receive back out of this has politics straight over every time. Next argument is other issues it's legitimate because it adds function making the term broader than the plan. First is ground international internal net benefits get erased. This is the only way to produce audits on this topic any partial. Introduce the laws and full interest is the leading German audit. Second is from getting text to shovel add on predictable shovels. Functions to achieve words from the event shovels via this has the historical function. By inserting exchange words opportunist rest of USFG should depend the base over functions and the converging. Russian should ground text indexability and engage just like arbitrary. Moving out every other negative position. Fourth is textual topicality applying text. Actually, fourth is rule that decision makers evaluate policy based on text on the function, not text permits. Rural education by comparing our function first, second one. Narrative based on not competitive, unpredictable, no abuse other. Verbs and panicality actually because they just depends on words and fails, and that's actually one of your short consequences of big ass under like a rest in the present. Which can be a practical sometimes is bringing us to the see that this regard the middle was nearby according to the share of the family. In the government procedural elements, next argument is Wilbur is guaranteed their reinvigorates credibility, uniqueness, the policies use them lawfully and sparingly to serve the score purpose of objective legal advice. The counterpoints are commitment to norms to OSC action restores its status as gold standard, prolonging that's OSC against model. A person that's with the officials meets this obligation because we're calculated to rule this system of administration. Parents and council that presents a generation. No policies that result in the indicated guidance was able immediately. And with decision often in practice, market court in practice, and next argument was solvency applicant theory, it's wrong competitive counterpoints. With the federal government are good first and they ground topics unvetted. The benefit and by repairs of kind of low and the unified ground process counterpoints are good, that was above it, no brown one. For a specific applicant needs to them, it would result in their counterpoint in all settings arbitrary, they would way to exclude this counterpoint. I exclude every other one because it's not a traditional theory that lacks brown line, there is logic and thinking beats. It's an opportunity cost theory officially inflates the app testing. In concept stuff, it's forced no offense, lucky, more solve, enforcement is part of the topic. In particular, in which X process solution we need the absolute advocate judge is justified by condo as most logical because they should be able to defend this as well. It's also not resolutional, which was above. They said itself that legal advice is not happening under Trump. He has no checks, and the government has tried out to force advisory opinions that they can see that he would say yes to the counterpoint and spoke was above towards the man. We are strengthening towards the shorter songs that expanded their when you see grand evidence as a total loss facing a quote general expansion, not based far more than it clarifies that some towards like marital disputes, racist allegations no longer carry legal weight. Those aren't key to regulation. But since torture regimes are expanding generally, the status quo solves. Empirics are bad. Straight line, no liability, emotional distress, and negligent industries all have expanded legal jurisdiction, at least at times of spillover that's around 2BC cards. This is about commerce, not tort law. It also says only about digital torts. Torts on the rise. Midnight at 22, at torts, more are rising of the crossing compensation 3.1% using insurance costs. System good, 6% outpacing inflation in GDP, but the plan is pro-trademarks anti-tort, which means every impacted event shows a disadvantage to the torts and trademarks are legally distinct and mutually exclusive monocorous torts are administered by common law, which is developed at the moment that trademark law is codified. There's a remedy for unfair trade that can use spillover at best and triggers paramedics faster at worst. That's when you grab the tort, trademark is tort. Limiting off on that wonder, not the artist control, not towards something like property, but then focus on residents that towards the compensate parties that tort focus on the fitness outcomes rather than the aesthetics. Build around unjust enrichment, positive action values, and spillovers. The second scenario is still they can't solve AM for competition. Their evidence against no warrants for spillover, broader competition. Expand liability for e-commerce platforms resulting in giant corporations being broken apart. Stats quote, antitrust laws check, never to link to the internet, fraud exists irrelevant. No competition because of cyber squatting, but there's no impact. Is the laundromats and no terminals or warrants conceivably this had no impact to the corporate responsibility counterfeiting. This advantage makes 0 sense. Their evidence as counterfeit parts are already being integrated now into nuclear reactors, which means the app is too little too late because it's a long life cycles. The app is more replaces twice, making everyone their app their impacts and that will no doubt that will be localized and once read and the impact was answered. But once you have an instance Chernobyl bounce the AI solves it and monitors conditions, meaning if they have a faulty part, they'll be fine. If they're right, meaning the only companies see the impact of the space of the issue which have positive about 24-hour nuclear, not even something common crisis, even with this situation with their aggregate. Environmental ecological risks that the all nuclear reactors are risks as your access to the intrinsic characteristics. Nothing. This is definition statements that are made by weather and beginning of regulation.
Cool. You mark that regulation?
Yeah. Weakening of regulation.
Nuclear meltdown thing, where does the app expand nuclear plants?
Where's the app expand nuclear plant? We think you stop nuclear plants from collapsing.
Okay, but it's about
Because
increase
it's
the
not
investment. How does that do that?
Well, you said in one AC prospects that like cyber attacks on microchips in these plants will cause the plants to melt.
Okay, so I guess okay, sure. The torts turn. Your uniqueness evidence, you highlighted to say torts are rising. It says tort costs are rising. Doesn't that indicate that torts are becoming harder to file in status quo? Or is that
It
not
says
happening?
cost and compensation from those torts are rising in status quo. Like there's more compensation, there's more cost.
I guess. Okay, I guess. The strong and expanding stuff about strict liability, emotional distress. This is not about the contributory liability about the asset. Like your uniqueness about grant, like the term.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The grant evidence indicates that currently trademarks and torts are being regarded under separate themes, correct?
I'd have to read it.
Well, that's what it says.
No,
We
yeah,
have the argument that trademarks and torts are distinct, and
Okay.
combining them is bad. That's a whole.
They are
Say that.
currently distinct and combinable.
Sure. You've said that trademarks are not common law and displace torts. Are you willing to take the debate on these factual questions?
What is the factual question?
That trademarks are not common. Like the app is
What
not
does this
common.
have to do with this?
You said that common laws and trademarks are different. The claims pro trademarks, anti-tort in that way, and thus it displaces. Are you willing to say that?
We have said that
Trademarks.
legally trademarks and torts are distinct, and we think that distinction is good, and the app by combining that is bad.
Sure. Are trademarks common law? Yes or no? Are trademarks common?
Like they could probably be
Okay.
regulated under common law.
Sure. Then how does that displace the common law of torts?
What?
How does that displace the common law of torts?
Your own evidence is that using it as like using torts as a mechanism of regulation displaces common law because the way the torts are used in a different manner than traditional common law torts. They're two different areas of law.
I think we better have the trademark is not torts. The trademark is not
read
torts.
your own evidence back.
The lending stuff. It's about modern IPR and treatments of IPR. Do you have any evidence specific to the plan and how it connects to the torts?
Which part is it?
Lending 5.
Yeah, the Limit 5 is about, what is your question? It's about modern IPR and combining that with
Okay.
torts. That's what the plan, that's what you've said yourself.
Okay, it's not specific to the plan. T-subs. If you win your protection definition, the United States federal government should strengthen its protection of all intellectual property rights in all forms in trademarks. How does that not mean? Grammatically.
Okay, it's all trademarks have to be covered.
No. The
Our
protection.
actions, all
Sure.
form, it says all forms of IP.
Why does not?
all
Why does
forms
not?
of mechanisms.
Why not the protecting trademarks increase the protection as an aggregate of all IP? You increase one like in GDP. You increase demand.
We
How is that not-
think that you have to increase the entire topic area. So trademarks, for example, you have to increase, the app has to affect every trademark. We think the app violates that because
The House
For
says
example,
every
the
single form
trademark-
of IP, including trade dress.
there are trademarks that are not like on these topics. So the app violates.
That's just.
Order is managed counterclaim. Okay. There's some measures that there is China.
Police counterclaim K. I need it from that. I need to order it.
Person who is China. A managed counterclaim, a person who is China.
Okay, so down. Person with Ben Congress?
Yeah.
Alright, he's annoyingly loud, so you're gonna have to be annoyingly loud.
Great.
Put some heart into it.
Yeah.
It's like noise proliferation.
Okay, so finally,
Your finished counterplay, you can see the parent test competition condo, we did one flex, capable counterflex are key, strengthening protection of IPs, nebulous, requiring multifaceted testing, asking like this, also to the 2SE, first one speeches, perfect finishes, evade clinic, two logic, counter medicine, unpredictable, non-resolution rule, that denies and the status quo, which is always letting remain a logical option, arbitrary rules are worse than no rules allowing the action, you don't have any reach over the mass. Substance now defense one energy utility, adding more apathy, species values until the strategic abilities to skill and one T decides to be having. In perfect case, reject dispo, one internal contested thirst on 2 force springs, plastic offense, the world peace flags, 3 cancel flex, the 2C techniques of block 4 research. It's inevitable if the straight choose the best argument to do it. 2C will always go for an intrinsic test solves all of the theories where you can reject the argument. Let the team, the K, continue to develop. It's test competition, question and decide. We're kicking and not going for it, concede there's no link to it, but concede the impact defense and no corporate, the impact that takes all the scenario on case strategy. Existential CCP backsliding outweighs immediate economic shocks, takes support with the regime, forcing diversion and aggression had watched to regain popularity that escalates Asian hotspots, but it deters the U.S. with regional nuclear threats, collapsing nuclear assurances as Anderson, that turns space, collapsing Asia, into successful public-based cooperation on every extent threat, causing ad impact, and if only one attempts counterfeits, will get flooded into the U.S. system since the U.S. prepares for war. Yes, to the blind system with that technology and taking them all from counterfeiting systems to towards China more faster than drugs, because it causes the CCP to first strike U.S. first before the U.S. strikes with the drones, and also our standard because no cooperation and when in the war they're going to take out the systems first. Now, choice one was using this, and the economy is high now. China said driving up consumer spending confidence with the government measures that help the economy abroad and broadly. That's de-taxation. The controls you're actually using it. There's still the economy now. The causes a massive collapse, which devastates legitimacy, diversification, tariff exemptions, and government bill installed. It's only 414. China put down tariffs. That's like Russia and economic diversification working the U.S. suffered, except for CBs, electronics. That's like market jump to average supported by the also. China's domestic market trend, turning the market trying to stimulate private consumption and high now is why uncertainty attacks and focus economics for 11, turning the market expectations and growth and confident face. Percentage GDP up from 3%, 61 support growth, strategic vision from productive quality, not getting the most COVID-19 global economy, AI, strategic money, model system, various for copy, renewed purpose, the crush, project investment, the half of evidence is terrible. It's irrelevant, generic China econ low. It's not responsible for arguments about China losing markets, taking his legitimacy, which is irrelevant to deflation and failing volumes, the economy is growing, which is their own evidence. Also, that he's an English based PhD way out of the field, thinking he knows us, they prefer evidence which real statistics. The 2C2 is that the government is the key. It's all China's economy. All of Trump's various massive terrorism has growth explicitly the economy in the past has 100 days. For a revival or returning them back to the original growth phase, isn't a boost on the economy, but it ensures that they are manageable, sustainable status quo, and it's a sufficient solve because all the evidence for why it would be down. Now it's about tariffs. 2C3 is perfectly any combination. Not only to the net benefit, removes confidence from China's market, spurring collapse. The economy is shield because there's only a restoration of growth, not a boost, which means they ruin China's prospects with benefits. That's based on the magnitude of the link. 2C4 means that they don't solve just China. Yes, you do solve global counterplay. One China's fact that one of these clever to solve all countering the world, you can't take them out, otherwise it destroys the economy allowed to actually spike out every single link in counterplay, choose go. You know that if you don't solve all counterplay and everywhere, especially China, then you also can't solve your scenarios because counterplays will get into US systems, which is a presumption of 2C4 means that they solve war wrong. We access your scenarios, but you don't solve ours. Drones just mean you will first strike China, but only we access war faster because of the CCP collapse. We'll got China to act first on the US to cause war, which means they can access ours because it's about CCP legitimacy, not the US and China just going to war over drones. 2C5 is that their counterfeits are key? Yes, they are. They plan reverse cosmic triggers and plan one revenue reverse insurance because of weak IP regulation. There's rapidly growing marketing. A global industry, which would think China for the 1 million consumers of our consumption of aggressive by 10% of global revenue, the world's shopping at 5% of China's total export of GDP. It's also decreasing economy without changing China's economy. Let me limiting significant portion of the economy based on economic violation IP in the West, and I see their relative economy without her domestic economy. The most violent 5 million market value of course 25 billion. They say the funding efforts was wrong. Confidence account for 600 billion, and then 2.1% all traded, 80% return rates in China. That's the TXT evidence, but it's a growing market. So our link is in rising magnitude. Their evidence against these is 2/3 of shipping, but it's also their evidence is the argument is about total collapse or removal of one central market in China was caused to be people become suspect of cheat and backlash. So it doesn't matter if China's economy actually collapsed. It's just that they lose the critical market. They say their impact outweighs, but that was above the social unrest is wrong. One, the evidence is still for 12 years. It should have already triggered the anti, which disproves it. But also, it's wrong to bet it's high because they like Congress. Rusty Yellow 13 copying on catastrophe, China's population of foreign companies, and service advertising, getaway products are very well, as an advertising cost gross, and largest market of the world, but many have products that
I'll go back.
The two employment shutting down companies results in social unrest. Chapel 6 shutting down companies, several local e-commerce, legitimate businesses that support trade, food costs, company warehouse storage system, and shutting down companies, closes businesses, and employment social, and chaos centers of towns, then a upon government goods and some money crackdown, surveillance of rise, free trade, impulse, trade, along with maintaining companies, manufacturing, sustain GDPs, to maintain growth, to ensure employment.
Moving on to
Insurance.
insurance loan, cool, 850.
Copyright 241. There's one very short one-line code I sent out volume.
Okay.
Just that. So advantage 1, advantage 2, T, advantage counterclaim. I'm going to do condo and the add-ons there.
Hold
Hold on.
up. Advantage 1, advantage 2.
Yep. T.
Yeah.
Advantage counterclaim.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do condo and add-ons that I'm going to fill it on one separate sheet. Then the OLC counterclaim. Or sorry, then the security K.
Okay. I'm sorry. What's going on after T?
We might, yeah.
Okay. T, advantage.
Got you?
Then the security K.
Okay.
Then the OLC counterclaim.
Now we're there. Okay.
And then the Chinese.
This is the sit on that part.
Yeah, one. It's PDC 20. I don't know.
T, advantage counterplan, security, OLC, China.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Am I ready?
Hold on. Go ahead.
The blog dropped so many arguments, not even funny. On advantage 1, they dropped 60 CubeSat streamline 60 now have backslash and coordinated global response. There's risk amount to component reliability, key with space. Otherwise, external backslash and nuclear action are never. Let's do it. Try or die. Parts already integrated wrong. Mirrors more reasons that COTS.CubeSat uniquely not either way. So linear risk if you want to exist, and it makes it try or die. Advantage 2. They dropped the internet impact, explaining that accidental to live in global cooperation, the backbone of global infrastructure. Unorganized form shopping and counterfeiting leads to mistrust and collapse of internet users. Their own case. They just said it wouldn't collapse without any evidence, but the point is it doesn't have to collapse, it just has to be splintered and divided between different countries. They also dropped drones. Drone reports below create air response use, that's true. Otherwise, Trump should swim from the Hellcat China by August on the immediate war. That's Ferguson and Troy. The torch, the internal, the only answer was a strict term. But they get it wrong. Contributor infringement is a torch dropper, that's the dong evidence. They were terrible on cross-exit about this, specifically on the e-commerce conflict. Quote, directly eats away at by borrowing liability when platforms aid in the counterfeit. That's the actors and grab evidence. Otherwise, torts fall back on slow development legislation. The 2NC was way too late on this. Their excess tort costs are increasing, which means it's harder, so we are winning the lead today. And also continue to start the evidence. The most recent evidence from 2024 that says tort law broadly straight down is zero for the attorney means that the only establishing the cheapest possible way yourself. That's Sharkey and Bernstein. We agree that torts are taken out. That causes torts to quote die. That's the Clark evidence that they tried to rewrite back at us, but it got them nowhere. This is entirely analytical and they are playing wrong. They only write a couple cards in the 2NC. Their uniqueness and only terrible Clark's torts are dying right now. This is not incredible to an artist. Uniqueness was after makes it try or die for the app. Now in T. This was 30 seconds of the 2NC, is not credible to an art. They dropped it in supersedes, protection in all, but then in. Protection refers to all areas, but you only protect in one area. You see, we increase the aggregate protection by increasing trademarks. The aggregate protection in all 3 areas is solved by increasing trademarks. They didn't even extend standard to the way this anti-resolution, because it says we have to be all 3, and takes off its applies outweighs because they take out of anything which makes it impossible. We have afterground outweighs background, and you see the functional limits check, which solves our offense. Now we need the advantage counter. I'll do condo here. You kick out a counterplans that affirms that they're rejecting argues default condo, competing interest, avoid intervention. Winning theory justifies 2 error, reclarification, makes 2 unreasonable. 1, research, after review, research on why also bad. Education, the only thing that comes out of debate. 2, strategy. They can double turn, no cost, and classify offense. 3, frame issue. 1, 3 round condo, think your strategy before. 2, other rounds solve their impacts, but not ours. 3, arbitrariness, number of terms involved in infinite. Then flex. 1, only read the 1 and see dispo. 2, athletes have ways. 8, topic 5. Abolish any IP, con, cap, take, domestic, right, pick, 18 counterplan, and barely any well supported solve the average. B, data, overhead, average 40%, 48%. That's the PVC 25. They say logic, not needing to verify some logical arts for credit. They say negation theory, no negation theory. If they cross-apply, the damage already occurred, leads to all the objects above. This was solved, still premiered by the 2NR. They say dimension, you 2 wrong, cross-apps don't apply when they kick it, it doesn't matter. Proven by this debate. They say skew inevitable is non-inevitable, it's linear, condo 2AC makes it impossible. They say no definition, we define it above. They say force perms, no, we won't perm parts that are bad. If the perm solves it, it doesn't beat, otherwise we won't perm, we won't stick them. They say can't solve flex, it can, down above. They say research inevitable, wrong, condo distraction, research above, proven by this debate. Illogical, that was above. They dropped 2 add-ons here as well. The Rossi evidence says we solve warming through reactors, that's it. They say because more reactors, that causes extinction, that NG non-linear effects makes it try or die. They only read meltdowns, but even if meltdowns don't cause extinction, the warming itself does. Umbrella, drones are good. Freedom says they balance itself preemptive nuclear war, which stops Chinese blast. This is another scenario which outweighs, which turns the China to each is a deficit kind of now the security thing. We'll concede all the other theory of the condos reason reject argument not the team. They drop curve condos, reason reject argument, OLC counterclaim, and China DA also securitizes, so we reject both of them as a voter for argument and irresponsibility. Condo answers don't apply, this rejects the argument. Now the OLC counterclaim. They drop impact events and impact turn. Advice is slows the president, which is a bad thing. Only flexible executive is credible deterrent while empirically avoiding adventurism. Deliberation is too fast and slow. That's the U evidence. And adventurism is empirically denied. 80 years of cooperation and restraint. That's you and he counts for Trump. That means that even absent advice from the president is not going to fight anyway, which is conceded war that zeros their impact, but it's not zero ours. Reject judge case. It forces the enemy to 2 3 hours is not justified by condo that was above and it links to that and it links to that benefit of the Chinese side, the deficit. It cannot solve. Its one executive order does not refer to the core president of constructive knowledge. It cannot solve the doctrine advantage. It means they can't solve advantage. The modeling parts of the course don't care about policy options. Instead, they're reluctant to defer completely down. It means they don't change the doctrine, which is critical to the advantage. That answers the Berman card, which is their only part in this question. The rest is Congress or executive. And even on the competition debate, they said it's not a legal force of law, which means the court rules it also can't model as word because the U.S. Supreme Court taking clear action by themselves is key. That means they can't solve advantage one or the add-ons. Their rightness starts linked right back to them. There's no basis for constructive knowledge for the executive, so they can't just create it. Now what they're trying to decide. At the top, no presumption on anything. We agree modeling linked with a two-slope of this. That case outweighs the outcome first. Drop impacts are at 100, make it fired out. Andrew didn't drop the impact. He said that our impact subsumes it, and drones cause it to mean faster China war. Either way, drones solve China. Good drones solve China war. That was also the drop atom. There's no link. I'm going to extend the counterfeit or small part of the economy. The cards are aspirational about whether China's counterfeit industry is rising, but drop that China is an $18 trillion economy. Even if all 25 billion counterfeits are leaving, it's only 0.0001% of their economy. The fluctuations in pairs and other economies means there's a drop in the bucket. That's fun. It's hitting the broadest flow. I'll extend the permutation do the act in any combination of the plans. It solves and outweighs because tariffs are such a small part of the economy. The evidence that says counterfeit is key to the economy is about percentage of counterfeits, not percentage of the economy, but no turn. Assume full and war, no turn states. Assume full and war, which our scenario is faster and begs the question link, and time frame controls the direction turn states. The drone strikes happen in 4 months, but they drop the 1 to see answers, brick and mortar counterfeit stuff. They have no evidence that all of e-commerce key to counterfeit in China, even if the industry as a whole is big. Bring issue for the links. None of them get the threshold reflecting all legitimacy. Work is not work. You should do for them. Challenge that. It says with one country inserted in that Andrew inserted. It says China would never do it because they don't know it. Modeling takes a bit of time. They didn't get to a war on trade, reject the laundry list, and no internal link to act outweighs.
Yeah, 6:32. The advantage counterplan? Here, let me get this in first.
The production stand.
Okay, the advantage counterplan, the OLC counterplan, yeah, the security kit, the China disapp, advantage one, advantage two.
Hey, we're ready. Alright.
Alright, so y'all both are good?
Yeah.
Is the panel good? Alright.
Conduct that is logical, proving that conditionality bad doesn't prove the plan is ready, so we're not resolution world. But the nice thing is the status quo, and the only particular world from next is test desire, but the average user interpretation on critical on fair watching outweighs arguments, arbitrarily limit the way in which they can do, and incentivize limitless proliferation of through arguments grounded in no resolution, otherwise for basis, they'll move the goalposts around the ground. Grounding ourselves as reasonable ways to make a fair educational value. First they'll say condo's bad, then this has, then turns, etc. Slippery slope. And then no net ground at all. The logic is also deep in scenario impacts is the impetus behind competition arguments, gutting cheating counterpoints, and allowing the to receive the reprint and ground in the case of the one and C2, hold the line for on new arguments. The two are 5 to 1 time advantage on 3, even if the 2 are debates perfectly the only answer. So your logic was the debate requires logical arguments. There's no one for this and no impact to it. It doesn't in logical arguments. We'll lose anyway. The Shakespeare is wrong. Death and revenge is wrong. First, this is inevitably the best answer to multilateralism is independence bad. The two will read it and research it, which means that the two A's will always research positions and go for it into the best argument anyway. Second is this that solves like a straight turn. Then that benefits a counterpoint which we cannot kick. Which also are often says skew is wrong. First is inevitability. Procedural is this has speed and framework case are all large all processing counterpoint. Second is diminishing margin utility, which is drop adding. More aptitude makes more likely. The direct cross application between them making coverage much easier. This vote fails, it forces perm, which is worse for research first. The net will strength to slippery process counterplans. After can reach straight to it because no one dislikes a commission reviewing the plan. Sickness counterplans. Who solves world peace will compel firms. OSC counterplan. The winner shouldn't go for competition or theory that conceding that benefit outweighs the deficit. It's tried high. The which checks on the road Trump to Teresa and one error conceded the impacts he knows existential nuclear crises are inevitable from military miscalculations and foreign policy errors causing nuclear annihilation. As a it turns the case Trump goes rogue with term proliferation and constant infrastructure projects, which causes meltdowns and the infrastructure collapse, which means we control the direction of the chart die, but the government solves by providing government transparency and checks on the Trump administration spilling over to broad precedent. The advisory OLC opinions which is dropped by the one hour, there is no turn to the internal Trump. That makes me need this because he won't use the executive to do any of those good things, but I'll explicitly concede when he argument to quote reject Rogers if this isn't Rogers. I don't know what is, which means that you cross this argument on your flow, check over Trump consider, give me leeway on it and don't let it spike out of it, even if it's tricky, it's an app argument. We are conceding and it also has actually police in the neck, we can never catch up. The counterpoint surely solves the case that Tracy conceded that Trump would follow on when it was doing the advisory memo and shining the plan to law use efficiency. Even though it impacts the distinction and the deficit doesn't have a threshold for what certainty means to that benefit must certainly outweigh strike. The deficit overflow. The Tracy didn't give a clear warrant so the entirety of the 1 hour was new, then you should reject new clarifications. Courts say yes for an issue. After just general assertions about what the attitudes of judges are, knowing we have evidence about how memos are treated versus treatment towards always listen to OSC declarations, their independent status gives them credibility to let the executive push his law and always characterize their propositions as law, history, and empirics. Primitive courts are always reluctant to intervene on the OLC opinion because if you're backlash and they are violating their rule, that's Berman. Drop. Second is perception. Officials in the government perceive the OLC to be credible and take the advice because it offers guidance. That's Perlstein and McLaren, which says that the OLC is, quote, the most powerful legal office. Even if we lose that, Trump can unilaterally place a constructive knowledge requirement through an executive order that's solved sufficiently because courts are highly Republican, especially the Supreme Court, and any judges who disagree with Trump go pummel with threatening of curbing and removing from the bench. They have no evidence for their argument, and only we do so assume that the world of the counterpoint solves force of law is irrelevant, that Trump would adopt the counterpoint and buy into which means that the effect would be creating the force of law, even though it's not a mandate. If they go for the exact place turn, it's still a net impact argument. Run to the tweeting, look for a single escalation. We're going to work in that the 2 hours going to grandstand on. It won't be there, and the only our scenario, which is the nuclear scenario, which is just a swamp on the risk of the deficit impact term push. The closest it gets to rogue states is rogue states, but there's no warrant for how those would estimate because they're so small. Either way, that's far off in the future for them. When they should be able to, they won't be able to solve it. The security case, they said, profound. Is there a reason to reject the argument? We're rejecting China. This had, we're not going for it. There was no offense on that page. See Chinese economy is it crashing now? That means war's never. Yeah, so that takes time.
Okay. We have 240. Going to be manage 2, doctrine, security K, the OLC.
I'm gonna manage 2 for a second. He's gonna reference the just that, but just for a
Like,
second.
since the internal link, it's like, when we manage 2, I just say that
I don't know why NBA thought we were going for Connor, dropping casing the 1% risk of a deficit or any doubt on the impact level, on the impact turn, on the impact defense level. The icon is after that. First on the manage 2. They dropped all internally under competition and towards the splendor is existential. The limits of global cooperation, the backbone of global infrastructure, unharmonized, full of trucking counterfeit and these of its trust and class of internet use that's narrow and independently turn the impact as US drone drones spill over between irresponsible use of drone job. That's true top like Trump Swan Jones. The Hell's Gate time by August caused immediate nuclear trade works in US domestic ports. A key and court doctrine is key with their jobs as Agnes and Bernstein, which I'll get to on the deficit. But we also constrain good and bad use of drones as umbrella ethical drones solve all war permanently, which ends with their adventures impact, which does not take out ours, just about domestic US drone ports. Now, the security case, Perfcon is an easy way to pull the trigger from the app. They say, can see, reject the army, they say reject the China, this have, but then also say reject OLC, government too, because also securitizer knows the dumb argument that was technically dropped into an arm-seated argument of irresponsibility. The reason to reject the argument is policy economists. Securitizer, just like the Canada's rejected as well. This also offers argument of irresponsibility. Economists do not apply to rejecting the argument of the team. Do not be caught up for the tune-up. Do not attempt to do this. I know you may not like this, but you go against us unless you address intervening in the way of a technical concession. Let's bring back the green pages. Now let's get to where the heat is. I don't know why. On the oil sea kind of thing. I don't know why this can drop the impact. The impact is Trump adventures and I cut the tweets that you cut. It says adventures is dumped and empirically disproven in November 2024 evidence past the election from after this election from the access under Trump is good, but will be checked by advisor opinions, i.e. the whole something mechanism of the counterplan is advising Trump to stop him from doing something, which is the whole thesis of executive flexibility. The 2 hours way too light on the impact. Research stated that Trump will actually go wild, cannot send any good evidence that says he was on the code. In 2016, we have evidence of 2024 that says 80 years of restraint disprove the impact, not send any good piece of evidence that Trump will actually go for a review. Is a meta-analysis of past actions of the president is necessary and good for solving a litany of impacts like terrorism, proliferation, all of war scenarios which independently go nuclear, especially because they do not outline how many the world goes exceptional as well. So our impact turn operates on the same level there. Reject longiness argument is not it's a non-starter. It's on the link level. China decided to reject longiness links, but not the impact level. And this is just words that they cannot concede. It's not new. The Trucy read the cards. They read new cards. The one yard extending the argument. The Trucy they read it on the slow. They say Trump provides uniqueness, but no, Trump does not provide uniqueness. They're the most recent cards. That's new. They say reject longiness and above. They say that Trump falls onto the case. It does not matter. Trump is not the court packing is probably a new argument, but they have not provided any evidence that the court would actually follow on to Trump's matter. The only evidence they actually did was actually, there's no reason that Trump would actually go over trial. Courts are still non-partisan to some extent, and any risk we think the court will not listen to like this big OLC defer to Trump means that the scenarios are a deficit to this. The deficit is 100. The court will not do the plan. They cannot solve the doctrine advantage. It's an executive order which is not reversed. The court precedent constructing laws, because courts are key. Every single one of our evidence contained. That's Bernstein, that's Dong, that's Abbott, that's Graham, that's Dudley and Hayes. I cut all of these myself, so I know exactly what it means when you read it, then we fire as well. They can only go for follow-on, but they have to win the courts affirmatively follow-on, not that they don't care. The courts do not get to that threshold, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence that the 2NC did not read. Focus on 2NC Berman. This is the one that I stated, and I'll read you quotes from here. This is the only evidence they extend for modeling a best line. I'll quote it here. It's quote from extraordinary reluctance to intervene in congressional executive conflicts over legislative oversight activity. The affirmative is not a legislative oversight activity. It's not in a congressional executive conflict. It is an internal court statute that the Berman evidence does not get to the threshold of. That means the courts do not go into executive conflict to the court in criminal doctrine and constructive knowledge. They have the final say, and the OLC does not, especially given that the OLC, even if it has the force of law, does not have the force of changing court doctrine and courts of changing stare decisis, which is the threshold that you need to be involved in, because the 2 and R did not get today. They say the 1 year dropped it. Devin definitely did it. I know she did it, and I helped them at that too. That means that they cannot solve advantage too. The modeling cards to the courts don't care. But OLC are positioning and said that they're reluctant to intervene, not that they defer completely to the president, meaning that they do not change doctrine, which is critically advantage. I did that all above on the case stage, but that answers Berman. The only evidence on the question there, only say for spill up, courts are left for opinion and answer above. The law in the card is not officials, not the court. Officials are not equal to the Supreme Court. They cannot change the doctrine. And it says that the most powerful for officials, even if people in DOJ think that constructive knowledge is the doctrine, that does not mean they will apply it, and does not mean that the legal doctrine of courts will be changed at all in the actual court. Now, the rightness card, think back to them. There's no basis for constructive knowledge in the executive. So do not read it in for them, because the 2 and R did not do enough work. As Congress and the executive have tried several times to do the act in the shop tape bill in 2020, which got struck down. The courts never followed on, which just proves say no again. I'll extend more impact mitigation here, because all the new scenario about like every single year it happens and like your scenario swamps ours is completely new, not in the block, because I didn't hear you one time in the 2 and R, but in the 2NC, but the advice flows the president, which is bad, and when flexible executive creates credible deterrence, will purely avoid measures of deliberation to Congress and oversight is too slow and expensive. That's you, and adventurism is empirically denied 80 years of this cooperation and restraint. That's you, and it counts for Trump. I mean, even absent advice, the president is going to fight. Anyways, it's a conceded warrant. Be it absent time frame faster, because you know the drones will happen by August. We will all die within 6 months. We need to try or die for the act. Look, even a high risk of assault in that case, the 100% risk of case was an extremely mitigated impact in that event that already impact turned to a 2NC means an instant act out.